All right, we are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guest with us this morning, Dr. Mary Evins. She is Professor of History at MTSU. It's good to have her with us, talking about the importance of voting. She's involved in the American Democracy Project, which I think, takes a look at the situation happening right now. Okay, can you give me a breakdown in your mind? Who is the most likely to vote? What kind of person is the most likely person to vote? And then I want you to tell me who's the least likely to vote.
Oh boy. Well, there are gradations. I don't know that I can answer that in the absolute. But
demographics, if you're a little older, right?
Older and also more educated people, and therefore when it comes to the younger, chronologically younger components of our population, it's also true that even though university students vote in really poor percentage numbers, they vote more than our 18-year-olds who have not gone to university.
Okay.
So that's a sadness, because again, voting is a learned, acquired skill set, and we work proactively with our university students to move that forward. If there's students who've opted not to go to university, then they're not getting me 5 days out of the week to be asking them, are you registered to vote, and have you gone to early voting, and to put the voting calendar into every academic syllabus so that we know what the dates are, and the students have those in front of them, and they get reminders, and they get emails from the university and from the university provost saying when the voting dates are, and the last day to register to vote for this voting cycle is such and such a date, and have you gone online and done your online voter registration. In Tennessee, there are pushes, just let me tell you, to get people registered where they actually can vote. Within a university campus, and specifically within my university campus, our registration is pretty darn good. We register students at somewhere in the range of 70 to 75% of our students are in fact registered to vote, but we only have about 44% of our students who do vote. So what that tells me is there is a gap between folks who are registered and folks who vote, and therefore about 30% of our registered voters are not showing up at the polls. And that also tells me that they are not registered where they can vote. So that's my point. There's a not-for-profit organization here in Tennessee called Live Here, Vote Here, so I give them a shout out. And they don't work with universities, they work frankly across the state, and they work often with Middle Tennessee's musician community. Because we have a lot of folks with that country music dream who come here from other states, and they land in Nashville, and they're gonna make it. And they may come originally, say, from Chicago area, from Illinois, and they continue to stay registered in Illinois even though they're living right here in Tennessee. And probably they're not voting absentee back in Illinois. They're just kind of not voting because they haven't quite imagined that and set down enough roots to know they're Tennesseans. And what this particular organization, Live Here, Vote Here, is doing is saying, hey, you're a Tennessean now, you're an American always, vote where you can, register where you can easily vote. So that's in terms of research, here's what we know. This is not only true for students, but it's true for human beings, it's true for every American. People vote where they park their car at night. They vote where they put their shoes under the bed. They vote where they put their head on the pillow. So although there are those who are vigilant and do vote absentee back home, wherever home may be, that's a very teeny tiny percentage, and we can up that, we can support that, we can provide stamps and envelopes and encourage you to apply for your ballot, but it's a multi-stage process and it's difficult. Really, what's practical is for people to actually get registered where they live. And so if you are here in Tennessee for a period of time and you have an apartment and you're paying a utility bill, you reside in Tennessee, get registered here. We'd love to have you. We welcome you. Tennessee's an open state. We have open arms.
It's an easy process. I just moved and have to go to a new place, a voting precinct now. And my wife just handed me last night before I went to bed, here, you fill this out because we've got to make sure we get the new card for the new place we're going to go to vote. It's simple. You fill it out and I'll get that in the mail. I just want to make sure it's in place and everything for the next election. And yeah, do that. And why wouldn't you want to vote where you live? Because that's where the decisions are made that are going to affect you.
May I also say that, just so you know, if you still have an out-of-state driver's license, whether you're the musician trying to make it here or whether you're a student, say, from Kentucky who's moved to MTSU for our recording industry major. You may register and vote in Tennessee even with your retaining your out-of-state driver's license. And I think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You have to have another form of ID to vote, and there's a list of those. A passport's great, military ID's great, and we also have handgun carry permit that's usable, not a student ID. But anyway, the difference is you may not register through our online registration portal. If you have an out-of-state driver's license, you need to fill out a paper form, and those are downloadable from online. You can get them from your civic engagement officer on your campus, such as myself, and you can get them at the post office and just practically anywhere.
Glad you said that. Excellent. Let's take another call. We've got several callers with some questions and comments. Next up is Henry. Good morning, Henry.
How you doing this morning?
Hi, what's on your mind?
Well, I voted early in Williamson County.
Good for you.
Where I live.
Good for you.
And they had paper backup. You punch your choices in on the computer screen, and then at the end of the process, it spit forth a typewriter or a letter-size piece of paper. You took it over. There was a stub on that. You tore off the big piece that showed what you actually selected on the voter screen, was then put into a machine to store it, and the stub from that was put in another box and to keep. So there is paper backup in some places anyway in good old Tennessee.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've heard that as much. And I think I've been in a situation where I've done that same kind of thing, where you tear it in the stub and then you actually get to put the paper in, and yeah.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That it is. And we, you know, Williamson County is a pretty well-to-do county, so they've been able to upgrade their machinery. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and you would say the paper receipt, then, that allows you to confirm that what you punched into that is accurate then in the receipt that comes into your hand.
Apparently so. I must tell you, I've never voted in a county where I've had one of those, so
I have,
I
and
don't
so that's
have personal experience.
I think that's the idea, though, is why. It's a secondary thing. You can make sure, okay, I punched that in. Did it really get registered properly? You can look and confirm it as you walk in and submit that form. Let's see. Next up on the line, we've got Ed. Ed, good morning. Hi, Ed.
Hello.
Hey, Ed. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay, Nick, good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning there, guest.
Hey there.
Believe it or not, my favorite subject in school was history.
Excellent.
Now, some people in the Democrats are still complaining about the election of 16, where Hillary got more votes than the President did. But here's the situation. And the professor right there can tell you, when they got ready to set up the Constitution, the smaller states was scared that the bigger states was going to have more control over the government through the vote. And this is why they had to set it up. And of course, Tennessee, I think now has got 11 electoral votes. But that's why it was done, because in this day and time, no college, and if they wanted to vote or win, they're going to concentrate on the East Coast. They're going to concentrate on the West Coast. They're going to leave the middle of the country alone, because that's where there's enough votes in those places to carry an election. So anyway, tell the folks it was a good reason behind it, so that their vote would count. And talking about knockdown, drag out elections, one of the worst ones was 1824. In those days, how you got your news was through newspapers. And these people, Democrat, Republican, or whatever there was, would set up a newspaper and they'd blast the other one. Yeah. And the reason, and the big boy behind that was our main guy, Andy Jackson. And the reason he was behind that is because he thought that the election of 1824 had been stolen from him, because he had the most electoral college votes, but not enough. So what happened, I think the first three, you know, they have to go into the House of Representatives. Well, Henry Clay threw his support to John Quincy Adams. And then all of a sudden, Henry Clay becomes the Secretary of the State. And so Jackson said, well, that guy has cost me the election. I'm going to fix him good. And boy, they did.
Yeah.
Boy, did they did. You think it's bad now?
Yeah.
It was really bad back then.
Oh, he's right. I mean, that's one example, and he is a student of history. I appreciate that. It was much worse back then in some ways, but at the same time, the difference now is social media has changed everything. He said it was newspapers, and I'm sure it got pretty dang ugly, you know?
Well, of course, the ultimate hysterical viciousness was the emergence of the Civil War. So, yeah, let's hope we don't have to ever have that happen again.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see. I'm sorry, who do we have next? Okay. Bob, good morning. Hi, Bob. What's on your mind? Rob,
yeah.
Hey, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 things on my mind, but the main thing is I wonder why you didn't have audio on your phones this morning, but I also wanted to tell you that if you wanted more people to vote, you can quit punishing people that's in jail and allowing them not to vote because they've been convicted of a crime. The forefathers of this country couldn't vote if England would have done that, and women couldn't vote. If they wanted more people to vote, make a holiday out of it, and allow people driver's license with a star on it vote without having to give the voting registration office all of your information for them to sell it to the politicians or to people that send you a bunch of stuff in the mail. They sell that registration out to different places, and that should be stopped. And then again, if they'll go back to paper ballots, people will have a better chance of thinking that their vote is counted. There was a German one time said it's not the people that vote that count, it's the people that count the votes.
Thank you for your call. I think he makes some excellent points. And by the way, we're working on an issue where they're on hold and they can't hear. We'll see if we can get that up for you, the callers. But yeah, are there ways, and he mentioned a few of them, that the voting process can be streamlined further to just make it easier? I've often thought, what about a holiday for the day, at least maybe for a presidential election, or make a special day for it as opposed to people having to rush from work to find their way to the polling place?
Bob, I really like the way you think. Thank you for that. He touched on many things. Tennessee has one of the most repressive attain back your right to vote sets of rules of many nations in the country, and frankly a lot of those are race-based and we're rather punitive. And in some states, people who are incarcerated can actually vote in prison, and in some states they can vote as soon as they're released from prison, and in some states they can vote as soon as their parole is over. But in Tennessee, all of those things have to be met, in addition to the fact that every single solitary bill that was owed in association with your incarceration has to be paid off, and that's really tough for people who have a hard time getting employment. So that's certainly one thing to think about. And if we wanted everybody in Tennessee to vote, we would have open arms, and we would say our citizens should vote. Automatic voter registration, Bob referenced, and he's certainly talking about the fact that women and African Americans and folks under 21 were prohibited from voting for a mighty long time. So it's true that if we wanted to be a full voting state, our legislature could make that happen. And I think of Tennessee as being the volunteer state. That should be part of our identity. I like us to be a leader. I don't like us to scrape the bottom of the barrel. I want Tennessee to lead in terms of humane policies and right-hearted policies, and ones that will go down in history as having been forward-thinking. On that note, we'll take a break, come back with our final segment with our fine guest right after this. Stay with us.